I think in February, for me, speaking for myself, is a month I have to consciously choose joy.
Right.
And I know I would love to be able, like be joyful in all circumstances. I'm not, and especially in February.
Welcome to Hallway Conversations. We're a trio of educators who have plenty of questions about teaching and learning and school culture, and we believe in the value of reflection and collaboration as we seek to keep growing as teachers. This podcast is our place for thinking out loud together about issues in education and why they might matter to Christian educators. Welcome to the conversation.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Hallway Conversations. My name's Matt Beamers.
I'm Abby DeGroat.
And I'm Dave Mulder.
Friends, we're always looking for topics of conversation and feedback, so please email us at hallwayconvospod@gmail.com. That's hallwayconvospod@gmail.com. We really want to hear from you. Dave and Abby, we are in the middle of February.
Yes, we are.
We're recording this on a Friday afternoon. Yesterday, an email went out asking people on campus to guess when the large snow piles
Yes.
on campus were going to melt.
Yep.
And I was so depressed thinking about that as I put the middle of April down. It made me realize spring is a long ways away.
How tall do you think that thing is?
It's got to be 10 feet tall at this point.
At least.
At least.
'Cause
I was going to guess higher.
I'm 6.5 and it's way over my head.
Yeah.
I was going to say 15 to 20.
Yeah.
It's right now, it's the highest point in Iowa. Hawkeye Point, you got nothing. You got nothing on the mountain of snow outside the window. But I was thinking about that as I put April, and to say depressed is obviously too strong of a word, but I was sort of like, we've got a ways to go.
That's right.
And I couldn't help but think about Narnia, where someone says it's always winter and never Christmas.
Oh,
Anyways, so in that context, Dave, I think you were formatted a topic for today, and maybe you can share a little bit about that as I shed a few tears over here.
So I always think February, there's doldrums, right? Like this is the part of the year where I feel like the novelty of the beginning has worn off and we're kind of into the slog.
Yeah.
And I had a situation early in my teaching career. The school I was teaching at, the teachers often gathered in the faculty room at the end of the day, and we would just have a cup of coffee and kind of check in, debrief, which was a lovely, lovely thing. And I was a newbie teacher. This is my first couple of years of teaching, and I was already sitting, had my cup of coffee in hand, and a colleague, a seasoned veteran teacher, flops down in the chair next to me and sighs. And his comment has always stuck with me. He says, February is the shortest month, but it's the longest month. Yeah. And I feel that in my bones this time of year. And I love my work. I love everything I get to do. And yet it's it's the doldrums, right?
Yeah.
And so I guess that's the question I have. How can we beat the doldrums? How can we reinvigorate ourselves, find some joy and delight, even though we know it's months until the end? Christmas vacation's in the rearview mirror. Spring break is a long ways off yet. We're in this in-between time. How do we find joy? Yeah. How do we find delight?
How do we find delight knowing this pile of snow has got 4 months left? I'll tell you one, this has nothing to do with education, but one of the things I noticed and always gives me hope is the days getting longer.
Yeah, the physical light.
The physical light.
Yeah.
Like, I really notice that. So
Yeah.
I'm an ridiculously early riser. And so I noticed through the end of November and December, like waking up in the dark. And this morning, and I took a picture of it and I sent it in our family group chat, that I got up pretty early. And you could already start seeing the orange on the horizon. And it just really struck me. I was like, like an audible gasp. I was like, I haven't seen that in a long time. And then all of a sudden noticing, at night, it's just a light, a little bit
longer.
So I know that's not a way to beat the doldrums, but I guess it's part for me, and I talked about this a little bit in class today, actually, this idea of like just paying attention to the things that do give you life. Like for me, I love sunrises. I love sunsets too, but I just really love watching the sunrise. It gives me hope. Someone back in British Columbia put a few pictures of crocuses blooming, and I know we're a long ways from that, and it gave me hope though, right? This idea of like spring is coming. The days are getting longer. We were above 30 degrees Fahrenheit here, which is 1 or 2 degrees Celsius this week.
That's not nothing.
And you could feel it. Like, I had students wear shorts to class, and I teach at 8 a.m. Right?
Oh, yeah.
But I love it. Like, I love it.
My kids were out shooting hoops in their sweatshirts.
Yeah.
I had a day I was driving around, I put the windows down because it's 38 degrees.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
So for me, that's not nothing.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
And I know
so
they
just
joke.
noticing the little things.
Yeah, like, and I know they joke in the Midwest about false spring, and and you know, because we know it's going to get cold, and we know there's more. But you know what? I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'll
absolutely.
take it every time. 'Cause
Absolutely.
it's just a little reminder that
Yeah.
it's coming.
And
So.
it's not, this isn't forever, right?
No,
That-
it isn't forever. It's not always winter, right? It's
Yeah.
that
You
idea.
bet.
So, anyways, that's where I'll start, is just paying attention.
That's good.
How about you, Abby?
Yeah, I think mine comes from not necessarily my own teaching, but my kids' school this week. We did it too when I taught high school. Is we would always put like a fun week in the middle of February,
Sure,
for the students to look forward to. So, it used to be around homecoming when the high school I worked at had homecoming in the winter before they had football, and then it was just a fun. Like, it was like a winter, I forget what they called it, Fun Fridays in February we've done,
Nice.
or like other sort of winter fun weeks. At my kids' school, they call it Spirit Week, and they do a different dress-up day every day. Today, I believe the 8th graders were taking on the teachers in a volleyball game
Nice.
that my kids were very excited to cheer on. And
They cheer for the teachers or for the
it was
eighth
split in
graders?
my house.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, my first grader was still firmly on the teacher side.
What?
Yeah, but my older two were definitely on
What kind
the
of
student
parent? You
side.
gotta speak to that guy.
Yeah, right? Oh, I think it's sweet. He loves
Yeah.
his teachers.
That's great.
Yeah.
Enjoy it while you can.
I know.
Enjoy it while
That's
you
right.
can.
Yeah, so even things like that gets them excited and switches up the routine, helps them to just like focus on something else. The cooks at my kids' school are really great about doing fun theme days, and they'll
yeah.
do that
Yeah.
in
That's
February,
awesome.
like at lunch.
Yeah.
Do fun theme lunches or things like that. So
anything just to sort of break the monotony.
yeah, and and it's just a culture builder.
Yeah,
I think.
sure.
My 6th grader is really into intramurals right now during their noon
Sure.
recess,
Yeah.
things like that.
Cool.
Yeah.
And to be able to throw themselves into it, right?
Yeah.
Like to,
Yeah, a reason to go, a reason to
Yeah.
look forward
Yeah,
to.
because even in the morning, right, when it's hard to go to school for a student, it's like, but we got that teachers versus student volleyball
Yeah.
game. I get like, it's like that for some kids, it's just enough to
or
get
career
them going.
day, see what everybody is.
Sure.
And,
Yeah. What did you go as career day? Can I
oh,
ask?
I can't remember if I ever did a career day. I don't know.
Librarian?
That's funny.
I get that a lot.
The truth hurts. No.
My guess is I just didn't dress up.
This is Abby DeGroot. She's really fun at parties. All right.
She is actually.
She is. Dave, how about
Really
you?
am, you guys.
Yeah, that's right.
February Doldrums.
So one of my go-to strategies when I was teaching middle school would be I would always try to save like a mini unit, like just even 3 or 5 days, something I was going to teach in the curriculum anyway, but like save it for February when I knew I would kind of be at that point where I just needed something. Yeah, I need something different. And it would bring me joy just teaching it because it was something that I loved. And it would bring delight to the students usually because it was like, it felt like something out of the ordinary. Like I'm just like, hey, we're in the middle of this unit on the human body. And instead we're just going to build these maglev cars in the science lab this week instead. And they're kind of like, what are we doing? That's weird. And I had a colleague who was really good at this when I taught at the Christian school here in Sioux Center. And Steve Kroll was my, we had adventurous pedagogy. Right? Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And so we would come up with these crazy ideas for challenges for the students. Like, well, the one I brought one time was, can they keep a block of ice from melting for 24 hours?
Oh, yeah.
Like, can you keep a block of ice from melting? Because it's snowing and cold.
Yeah.
Right, it was a science thing. And so Steve was like, that's great, let's do this. And so we worked it into this whole unit where they were doing a lot of math to calculate the volume. They had to like prove to us they had, so our strategy was if they can limit the melting to not more than 10 milliliters of water or 10 milligrams of ice, 10 grams of ice per hour, then they'd have ice left at the end of it. So they had to prove to us it was 240 milliliters of water to start with, right?
Yeah.
So they had to do some calculating the volume and stuff. And anyway, they had their time to crack open this thing at a certain time of day. They had to get it out of the freezer so they could put it in the science lab and let it thaw out. And it was just delightful for the students, but for us too. I got to tell the story because this is so funny. Steve and I were watching the kids at work. They're constructing these projects, and they, brainstorming all these ideas for what are they going to do to keep this ice cube from melting. And as I'm walking around, I hear this group talking, and one of the young ladies, she's an 8th grader, and says, "Well, my mom will take a pound of ground beef out of the freezer in the morning, and it'll still be frozen like in the evening, and when she's ready to start cooking supper. So why don't we pack this ice cube in meat?" And I'm like, what is happening here? Like, I'm dying, right? And so I go over to Steve, I'm like, get a load of this. So I'm going to pack it in hamburger. You would not believe, like, half the ice was left in that one. Like a huge amount. And it was just so joyful and delightful for us as teachers because we had no idea. Like, we weren't scoffing like, oh, that's not going to work, right? That was the most successful project. And so for us to be just absolutely blown away by what our students come up with too, right?
That's fun.
So I guess that's kind of one of my strategies, right? If you can come up with an interesting problem or a challenge or something you're going to teach anyway, but like make a funny twist on it so that it just kind of catches students by surprise too.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the school where I was at. Every year they would do an egg drop, and so they into math and science, and it was design and artwork, and I can remember all these Disney characters and stuff, and there was no limits, right? And then Danny, the principal, would go up on the roof of the school, and he'd always wear his cat in the hat, his big hat, and the whole student body would be out there, 500 kids, and he would just literally toss them off one after another, and then it would land, and sometimes you could audibly hear the smash of the egg. So then every time it landed, the student would go out there and unpack it, and if the egg wasn't broken, he'd hold it up like a statue. There was great rejoicing in the land, and I think it's just those things, right? Of like, how can we do learning and build community, and sometimes informal learning.
Yeah,
right?
and if it is both, great, right?
Yeah, it makes me. I have a friend who talks about this idea of choose joy. That was sort of his storyline. And I there was this book called Choose Joy because happiness isn't enough, and part of me is like, well, but there's a truth to it, right? Is this idea of I think in February, for me, speaking for myself, is a month I have to consciously choose joy. Right. And I know I would love to be able to, be joyful in all circumstances. I'm not, and especially in February, I'm not. I'm not joyful in many circumstances, if I'm quite honest. And it's a hard month for me. I know I've always personally, to be vulnerable, struggled in February, and I don't know if it's a darkness thing. I come from a place where it seemed to rain all of February, but that choose joy is really resonated because I think it is different than happiness, right? Like you're going to have tough days, but to look around and say, like, where are the moments of joy? Like to find joy in ice packed in hamburger, meat.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Totally. Or even rhythms that you can build, right? I used to read to my high school students, pick a book that and spread it out and be like, we're gonna bring back the teacher read aloud, right?
Sure.
Just for nothing else than the joy we get.
What's one book you remember reading to your students in high school, Abby, to put you on the spot?
I'm not gonna be able to come up with one.
Okay.
Let me think. Well, we used to read plays quite a bit, and I would just read, or I'd read poetry, or I'm not gonna be able to think of a book that I read.
But as you're saying though, like even that, it makes me realize everyone loves being read to. Like everyone loves a good story.
Yeah, a picture book. We'd do that sometimes.
Some of the
connected to whatever we were studying.
Sure. Sometimes the tension though you can feel as a teacher though, right, is that doesn't seem like learning. Like what standards am I hitting? And I also wonder, like, is there a case there for as teachers, like how do you also give yourself grace? Like I don't want to be flippant about it, but to say, like, in the big scheme of things, those 20 minutes could go a lot further, like reading for 20 minutes and go, like, would you agree
I would
with
totally
that?
agree with that. And this is why I sometimes use that phrase, permission to play, right? Like, so take it. You have permission to play in your pedagogy, in your teaching practice. And, like, it's okay. I think it's okay. We're so worried about time on task. And time on task matters. I'm not saying that. But I think sometimes we're so worried about time on task that we don't remember to just, like, be delightful with our students. Be a little whimsical and be silly with them, right? Like, that's good too.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder if, like, to be whimsical and silly and funny or to read for 20 minutes, you might get more done in the 20, 25 minutes preceding that than in 45 or 50 minutes of everybody just...
Well, there's research about that I teach in Education 135, our Intro to Psych class, about outdoor play and physical activity, right?
Yeah.
So you think that it takes away, or even stretching in the middle of a class, or...
Sure.
You think that it takes away class time, but the productivity in the other minutes greatly increases.
Yeah.
It makes a huge difference
it
then,
does.
right? I think other small things you can do, right? Like this would be the time of the year where I would totally rearrange the furniture in my classroom.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like make a different side of the room, the front even, like to that level of rearranging. Get the students involved in it. Like let them help, like let's figure out what's a different way we could have this arranged, right? The other one I saw recently that I thought was so great was like, well, there's research about in middle schools hanging up a mirror in your classroom and how good that is for kids just to like check in on themselves in the day, right? And to like see like that they're looking okay, they're doing okay, right? Yeah. So, but then the twist on that was start putting like ridiculous thought balloons on it. So when you look at yourself in the mirror, it says, "I am on fire today," or something like that. And like the kids just, it gets them. And those are small things,
Totally. Yeah. My sister always had a mirror in her classroom, and it just said Imago Dei underneath.
Oh, yeah.
And I just love that idea, right? Of just like...
It keeps it in front of them.
Oh, yeah. You're looking at the image of God, right? It's you. It's like, I just always loved that, man.
It's so
those
good.
little reminders, I think... Well, I think it's what you said. Those small things, I think, make a way bigger... Like, we'll never know, but I just think, I trust that it makes a bigger impact than we realize.
Yeah, that's right.
I think I've seen it in maybe it was schools around here back in BC where a bunch of seniors in the high school, a bunch of senior girls in the high school left a bunch of notes in like the grade 8 or 9 bathroom on the mirror, right? Just things like "you are loved," like filled it with sticky notes, just positive, "you're loved, you're valued, you're beautiful," and it was just like, I just thought it was the most beautiful thing,
That's
right?
a neat idea.
It's just like a reminder, right? Who you are.
And why not keep that? Let's celebrate that.
No, totally.
Or I saw a really good one online recently, like start leaving funny notes around your classroom and your school, right? So next to the photocopier, you leave a note that says Comic Sans is not allowed in this school, and in parentheses, unless you're writing short stories about unicorns. Or, I mean, just like silly, delightful things like that. How many licks does it take to get to the Tootsie Roll center of a Tootsie Pop? Leave your guesses here, or something just silly to, and I think those are small things, but like you can be ridiculous too. It's been 1,000 days since our last grizzly bear attack on this campus, or whatever, right? But just like bring in some of that silliness, and sometimes that's going to be the weird thing that gets your students, right? Or kind of helps them get past the doldrums too.
Right.
Yeah, and you'd be surprised like how that might connect with some students in a way you may not even realize. Like, right? Because it's a heavy time for everyone, and maybe if it's not for that specific student, it is at home, or we have no idea what's going on in these kids' lives, right?
That's right.
So a good belly chuckle is good for anyone at any time, but maybe especially in February. Friends, we know that your time is valuable, and we want to thank you for joining us today for another hallway conversation. Whether it's this day, this week, this month, or this year, we hope the Lord gives you what you stand in need of. And we'd like to send you from here with this blessing. So to our listeners, for whom we are so thankful, may the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face. The rains fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand. Thanks for listening, everyone. Have a good week.
This podcast was literally dreamed up during one of our actual hallway conversations. Our music is by Ethan Mulder. Hallway Conversations is created and produced by Matt Beamers, Abby DeGroat, and Dave Mulder. Hey, we have a favor to ask of you. Would you be willing to rate this podcast or write a review in your podcast app? Or if you found this conversation interesting or helpful, would you consider sharing it on your social media? Those things really do help podcasters out, and we would be so, so grateful. Thanks for listening, friends.
been 1,000 days since our last grizzly bear attack.
I mean,
Awesome. No, that's awesome.
that's great.
I've never heard that before.
I just am picturing, someone crosses it out, writes 0. We're like,
Yeah,
what?
yeah, totally. So we should put a sign like that out in that. Totally.
Zero.
Yeah.